the Justice Department is at the federal courthouse arguing against a request made by former President Donald Trump. He wants to see a special master appointed to review the documents seized by the FBI right here at Mar-a-Lago last month. Now you can see the rocket from just over the waterway over there. Now what makes this mission special is it's the first time since the Apollo days of the 1970s that NASA will be heading up to the moon. COVID-19 school closures and mask mandates have been stirring up controversy amongst parents. Now here in Palm Beach County, there's 4 seats that are up for grabs. Across Florida, you'll see areas like this one here marked off on the beach. This is to indicate where there is a known sea turtle nest. Here at the federal courthouse, the judge just ruled to unseal parts of the affidavit used by the FBI to search Trump's Mar-a-Lago last week. In the courtroom, proceedings lasted for about an hour and a half, where the government argued that unsealing portions of this affidavit could put both the investigation or the witnesses at risk. When casting a ballot, 38% of Americans are considering gun control to be extremely important this election cycle. And while it's a whole new chapter, it's the same bookends and beginnings story. Here in Mackinac City, where behind me, the Enbridge Pipeline 5 runs in the Mackinac Straits, which some groups say poses a threat to the water supply. Some city council members are pushing for a dog park right here on Lincoln Street Beach. But this is the only entrance, and as you can see, you have to cut through campus to get here. The protesters just moved from the SAE house to the AE Pie house, the 2 frat houses where alleged druggings occurred this past week.
None of us knew, none of us imagined that a week later, our lives would be irreparably altered by the same violence that we were protesting.
Northwestern students demand action, calling for change after a shooting on Clark Street Beach just south of campus left 1 teenager dead and 2 others injured.
We've just been trying to organize while also processing everything that happened.
Demanding gun violence prevention and answers for the 30-minute gap between the shooting and when students received communication from NU.
Another thing includes security measures. I know a lot of people were in areas where they did not feel safe. They couldn't lock doors.
In an email to students Thursday, Northwestern University President Michael Schill saying we need to shorten the communication gap, and they're reviewing their response to, quote, ensure we do better when the next incident happens.
Not have had to take a shooting by the edge of our campus for the school to start discussing updates.
And attendees sharing their experiences as survivors of last week's shooting.
We were in a wide open space and the gunshots felt like they were getting closer and closer because they were.
Or the shooting last summer in Highland Park that left 7 dead.
The main way that I cope with what happened is my advocacy, and it does actively help me. And so when this happened, I was partially in survivor mode.
Students demand action planning Friday's rally before last week's shooting.
That is the nature of the world in which we live now.
But their original focus, launching a campaign to request transparency on if any of Northwestern's endowment is invested in the gun industry.
Funneling money into this industry that actively kills us is only hurting the situation.
Northwestern University spokesperson John Yates did not respond to NNN's request for comment regarding the campaign and if any of NU's endowment goes to the gun industry. Northwestern and the surrounding community coming together.
Gun violence is a horrible disease. It doesn't just affect the patients, it affects their families, it affects an entire community.
With a message of hope amid tragedy.
And having faith actually is the key to change.
Gabrielle Khoriaty, Northwestern News Network.
New building ownership in Bookman's Alley, raising rents and forcing Bookends and Beginnings to vacate by the end of January.
We, didn't receive any grace period.
A new developer increasing rent 125% after taking ownership in July, after months of failed negotiations, an eviction notice 2 days before Thanksgiving.
If what he wanted in his Bookman's Alley development was a bookstore, then there might have to be some concessions to what a bookstore business model looks like.
Alley Gallery behind me, which was also bought by the developer, tells me they're seeing that same rent increase as Bookends and Beginnings, but that their business model allows them to pay it.
It's sort of a disrespect to the integrity of our downtown.
The developer's goal is to build apartment units in the former Varsity Theater next door and an easement in the alley. Evanston City Council approved the easement in May 2021 during the last meeting before Kelly took office. But she says she feels they were misled.
I don't think that any of the aldermen would have voted for this had they known that this would potentially lead to the forcing out one of our most cherished small businesses.
Developer Stephen Rogan told NNN he would not comment until the new year.
Voted to give this developer an easement to the alley so that he could create this little pedestrian mall area with these legacy businesses.
Bookends and Beginning started a GoFundMe to continue their story in a new location on Orrington. It's already raised over $70,000 in 7 days. But last week, the city denied them American Rescue Plan funding. City officials are split on the bookstore's eligibility, but tomorrow a city council vote to approve nearly $83,000 from other sources.
We don't really know what our budget is, but we do have to get a lot of this underway.
To move, they not only have to transport over 40,000 books, but also rebuild their magic.
Being a beautiful space that people wanted to come visit has been so much part of our identity.
The end of a chapter.
It's a bad Hallmark holiday season movie,
but not the end of the Bookends and Beginning story.
It's going to be a Hallmark holiday season movie that has a happy ending.
Gabrielle Khoriaty, Northwestern News Network.
1, 2, 3, 4, we won't take it anymore.
Chanting for workers' rights, signing union cards, and calling for change.
Today, I call all of us not to settle for less.
The organizers call it the More Pay, More Say rally.
I'm a 6th-year PhD student currently, and I've been involved with NUGW pretty much since the day I arrived on campus.
Ben Zucker is an organizer for Northwestern Graduate Student Workers, or NUGW.
Seeing the progress that this campaign has made to such a degree in such a short time is incredibly inspiring.
Hundreds of demonstrators are gathered here on Deering Meadow to show their support for the unionization of Northwestern University's graduate workers.
I hope to see as big of a crowd as we possibly can.
The crowd mobilizing to sign around 1,300 union cards, according to the organizers. That's about 9% of NU's 14,000 graduate students.
Indicating that they would like to have an election for a legally recognized graduate worker union.
A successful election would give NUGW legal recognition and allow them to negotiate with NU.
So we can have a say in how we work.
Graduate student workers act as teaching and research assistants for courses across the university. In a statement to NNN, Northwestern University spokesperson John Yates says, quote, Northwestern University has always regarded its graduate students as students first and foremost, and has been steadfast in its commitment to support, mentor, and train them. But NUGW says this distinction between employee and student can be blurry.
The university treats us like students when it's convenient and workers when it's convenient.
The group is asking for competitive pay through graduation day, stipend raises to account for inflation, and for stable funding past their 5th year.
A lot of us, our programs actually take 7 years to complete.
Comprehensive health care, focusing on vision, dental, and dependent coverage.
So how many of us are going to go another year without seeing a dentist?
Graduate student workers seek a new contract by next academic year. Gabrielle Khoriaty, Northwestern News Network.